everybody, this is David Snyder again, coming back to you with another exciting installment of ROI Secrets. Because our last conversation was so successful, I'm going to have another talk today with my good friend and colleague Steve Junqueiro, former president and chief operating officer of the Save Mart grocery chain. Steve will be talking about the qualities of real leaders, people who are able to create more leaders and create more engagement, quite frankly, inside of the companies that they work with by helping other people to become leaders. The main message is that real leaders create more leaders, not followers. So I would highly encourage anyone who is in the business of coaching, mentoring, and growing leaders inside of an organization to listen to every single word that Steve Junqueiro has to say. I really think you're going to enjoy this episode. And thanks for being here. Okay, so here we are back for part two of Real Leadership, or Making Leadership Viral, with Steve Junqueiro. In our last episode, we talked about the poisons that you can have in your culture and that can prevent real leadership from flourishing. And we also talked about cures. If you have those poisons, such as defensiveness in the leadership team and not listening to people and being egocentric, what are the cures for those? We talked about that last time. So if you missed it, go back and watch episode 1. But today we're going to talk about our last 2 points, and those are the barriers that you may have to having a viral leadership culture where leaders create more leaders as opposed to more followers. And then 2, what are the solutions to those barriers? So it's pretty simple. Our topic is, real leaders create more leaders, not just followers. And what are the barriers and the obstacles to that in your organization, if that's your goal? So today we're going to talk about first the barriers. That's points 3 and 4. Barriers, point number 4, solutions. We talked about points 1 and 2 last time. So barriers. Steve Junqueiro, as the former CEO of Save Mart, who's now working with a lot of companies around the country in retail, grocery, and supply chain, what have you seen in terms of the barriers that some companies have in place that is making it systemically impossible for them to have a flourishing leadership culture?
Well, I think some of the barriers that pop up are very, very detrimental, and one is a toxic culture. Having a toxic culture or the introduction of a toxic culture into your business. And I think through proper leadership and grooming of leaders, you can get by that, but it has to be addressed. You must develop a team culture, a culture that cares about each other and is focused on accomplishing the same goal, whatever that is, whatever that has been decided. It has to be a team effort with a team ego. Other barriers are things like non-believers. People that may or may not be fully engaged with the goal, with the culture of the company or the purpose or what the goal of the company is. And so again, it's through leadership that you identify those people and help them get past that trait and become part of the total team. And again, with the focus of what we're all trying to accomplish. So identifying non-believers and helping them get past that. If they can't.
How do you help a non-believer, so someone who doesn't believe in what the company's all about and the company's mission? How do you help a non-believer get beyond that?
In many cases, I have found that they are non-believers because they don't understand the true task at hand. They don't understand or don't know everything they need to know to be focused on the goal. So I think it's a lot of time it's the leader's responsibility or even the leader's fault that there are non-believers in-house. And in many cases, as I said, you can help that non-believer become a believer just through interaction, through mentoring, coaching, but many times it's just making sure they understand what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, a lot of CEOs have told me that it's really as simple as bringing in people from across the spectrum and just having a conversation in a room, just like two human beings on equal footing, and having the CEO explain and say, this is what we're trying to accomplish at our company. This is how we make money. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate having you on our team. Just so you can hear it straight from me, this is what we're trying to accomplish in the next year. This is how we make a profit, or how we will make a better profit. These are some of the problems that we're encountering in reaching our goals. We're really glad that you are on our team to help us accomplish these goals. What do you, now that I've explained what it is that we're trying to do, what do you see in your job are barriers to you becoming more successful and helping us achieve our goal? And what can I, as a CEO, do to get you either more knowledge, more insight, more coaching, more training to help me and to help all of us achieve our goals? It's just really that simple, but so few people do it. Is that what you're talking about, Steve?
David, you just succinctly describe the solution to the problem of toxic culture and non-believers. It's creating a forum where you can have that conversation, and that's all it is. It's a conversation, explaining the focus of the company, where we're going, what are we going to accomplish, and how each one of us, yourself included, but everyone in the room, is going to help with that effort.
You've also talked about overtrained fighters. Talk to me a little bit about what you mean about having overtrained fighters.
Yeah, that's another barrier, is overtrained fighters, and what I mean by that, that's usually someone that's new to the team, or even an existing team member that really is very focused on their individual goals and individual aspirations. And they are focused on that very thing, and to a point where they become abrasive or not supportive of the total goal. And again, that just needs to be addressed, and it needs to be talked about, and hopefully through that communication and that mentoring, you can turn that fighting effort into the right direction for the right goal.
But how do you do that where some people who are hardwired to be competitive? Because here's a really tricky question. You know, a lot of corporations run on the principle of internal competition. For some crazy reason, they actually encourage it, compete against one another and compete against one another fiercely. They actually encourage that. It never turns out very well. I mean, people get health problems and ulcers and they leave and they quit and no one knows why. A lot of it can be tied right back to a state of like fierce internal competition, which sometimes turns into backstabbing and throat slitting, whatever. But, people do need to have a certain level of, aggressiveness or assertiveness in a business culture to achieve goals. I mean, if you don't have an assertive sales force, you're going to go bankrupt, right? But how do you strike that balance? Like, how do you create a healthy balance? Like, how do you, as a CEO, stand in front of everyone and go, people, I want you to be assertive and I want you to be aggressive and I want you to go for the brass ring and try and be all that you can be. But I don't want you stabbing your team members in the back, and I don't want everyone being hateful and spiteful and narcissistic in my culture, it's just not going to work. How do you explain it to them? That's what everybody's trying to figure that out. So if you have any brilliant answers, lay it on us.
Well, I tell you, when I address that, it's really making sure they understand that everyone needs to have a team ego.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's back to being a fanatic about your respective team and your people and your responsibilities. Just be a fanatic to make sure that is done to the very best possible. But also understand that you need to be a maniac about making sure the enterprise is successful. So that's understanding that the things you do, the things your team does on a daily basis, is all done to make sure that the total team, the enterprise, is successful. And so, I think competition is good. In fact, I've incorporated competitive teams within an organization in the past, because I think it raises the level of execution. But I think it's so important that everyone understands that all creates the opportunity for the enterprise to be more successful. It's no different.
That's brilliant. Now that's brilliant. Competitive teams as opposed to competitive individuals. That makes an incredible amount of psychological sense because you're still incorporating the team aspect. And I hate to use a sports metaphor. Some people say that you can't, but I don't see any way around it. Just comparing it to a sports team, it could be a soccer team of any gender. It could be a football team, a basketball team of any gender, but just a team. Okay. So on that team, as a coach, you would say, yeah, we do want to win this game. And it is true that we want to crush the other team. We want to obliterate them. We don't want them to score any points. We want them to score zero. And we want to completely sweep. And we want to win the Super Bowl. We want to dominate. But just when we win, we're going to win as a team. We're not going to win as an individual. We're going to win as a team. And the same thing here at SafeMart or anywhere else. When we clobber the competition in 2023, we're going to clobber the competition as a team, not as a group of highly self-centered, egomaniacal individuals. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely, because within that team, there are subsets of teams that have to execute at a high level for the total team to be successful. It's no different than special teams, defense, offense, you name it. You can apply this to any sport. Those individual teams have to strive to be the very best at what they do, but understand when they accomplish that, the total team wins. And if there are teams that are not at the same level or not executing at a high level, you might not like the results for the total team.
Great. So now we're heading down to the last point, solutions. And I think that you've already touched on some of them so eloquently, like you've mentioned listening. It's all about listening. You've talked about setting the example, being the human personification of what you're talking about. Like if people don't see Steve Junqueiro as the greatest listener ever and a person who truly cares about every single individual, if they haven't seen Steve Junqueiro inviting everyone across the board into his office for a closed door session saying, just tell me how I can help you feel better about your job. If they haven't seen you doing that, the words that come out of your mouth are worthless. Yeah. But they've seen Steve Junqueiro doing that, and so they believe him. And so you have set the example, and you have earned a reputation as someone who's listened more carefully to customers and team members and suppliers than anyone else may have ever listened to them. And that's kind of what's made you famous. So you got, those parts right. So when you start talking about that, people know they're talking to a guy who has walked the walk and talked the talk. But you mentioned a couple of strategic things in your last 2 points, which are creating forums to cultivate leadership, teamwork, and engagement. Now, I think and the fourth one was to, use that as using those forums in an effort to create more leaders and not just followers. Okay. About those forums, doesn't there often come a time in which companies simply need, either with their own help or maybe with the help of an outside person like yourself, to come in and stage a series of like growing forums, or maybe it's just a 12-person focus group where you bring people from across the board into a room, people at a very high level, and then people who are on the front line, bring them into a closed door session, have an open conversation, and just say, let's talk about 2023 or 2024 or 2025, whatever year happens to be facing you, and just say, talk out loud, everybody. I'm gonna, I'm the CEO. I'm gonna establish, like, here's what we do for a living. Here's where we're trying to improve, and this is where we need some help. Can anyone just, with no fear of repercussion, just speak up across the board and tell us, what are we getting right and what are we getting wrong? I mean, how do you see that kind of forum running in a pilot program, maybe, if you were to do it in a small way, just to get people thinking they really are listening? And then how would you grow that out once you put your toe in the water?
Yeah. It's so important to set the forum or create a forum where people can voice their observations and their opinions, what's working and what's not working. It's so important for a company to have that tool or that opportunity. I used to do what I call president huddles, where I toured the company for about 2.5 months to talk to groups of stores and representatives from each store, from produce clerks to store managers to courtesy clerks. And it was a huge time commitment, but I remember every time that I started it for that year, I just, the first day after the first meeting, I would say, I can't imagine not doing this, because it was so impactful. To have the opportunity to talk to the people, to hear what they're seeing, but also to explain to our people what the goal of the company was, what we're doing, and then to answer questions, because everyone deserves an answer. You might not always like the answer, but you deserve to have an answer. So those president huddles were fantastic. Throughout my career, at each one of my responsibilities, I had with my teams what I called a no sacred cow meeting, meaning I would have a representation of that group come in, 10 or 12 people, and fully understanding that nothing was off the table. I wanted to hear anything and everything they had to say about what was going on in their respective areas. And then the feedback was so valuable that I created those and conducted those throughout my career at different levels. So I think it's that important that you create the forum, that people understand that they are being heard and they are contributing, offering their thoughts, their solutions, their observations. And what's so powerful is the information that you get from those meetings is very, very valuable, because you can act on it. What becomes even more valuable is when you do act on it, and people see that their input, their observations, their opinions actually meant something and made the company better. That's powerful. That really is powerful. And that's why I think it's so important to create the forums. There's many ways to do it, but create the forums that allow people to be part of the company.
That's golden. What you just said is letting people know that they made a difference.
Absolutely.
If everyone would just pay attention to that one sentence, I think, and everyone would listen, let people know that they just made a difference, that we would be living in a different world. Because what is it that the most human beings would like to know, Steve? that they made a difference, right?
That's what made a difference.
Everybody that I talked to just said, every day that what they really want to do at the end of the day is to make a difference in the world. And a lot of them feel that they don't know whether they're making a difference or not. So therefore, ergo, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, help your people to understand they're making a difference, and you will change the world.
Yep.
I'm going to thank you for just a wonderful, wonderful talk this time. But I think when we come back next time to talk, I want you to talk to us based upon what I just said and how you answer. I want you to come back next time and talk to us about the biggest changes that we need to see in our industry, meaning, retail, grocery, and supply changes, the biggest changes that you think we need to see, and how we execute or treat our customers and treat our employees in the next year, if we're really going to do what we say we're going to do. Next time, I want you to talk about the biggest changes that need to happen.
Love to. Looking forward to it.
Good. That being said, sir, thank you very much. I'm going to wish you happy holidays. I know you've already had a great Thanksgiving, but I hope you have the happiest of a Merry Christmas season for you and your family. Thanks again. I can't wait to get this up, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Steve.
Always a pleasure. Have a beautiful Christmas season.
Thank you, sir.